Hello everyone. Today I'm going to show you and talk a little bit about gelatin and gelatin types. Gelatin comes in all different forms and basically divided into two types. One is hard gelatin type with a low number, and the other one will be soft gelatin with a high number. Soft gelatin is also called Knox gelatin or food gelatin, and you will recognize it like different types of products for cooking, making jelly, and so on. And you can use even this. Only just pay attention that it is without sugar, because sugar will melt and spoil the whole result. Another type you can buy in the food store is gelatin plates. These come like this. Also can be easily melted and used. This you put in cold water first. When they get really soft and swallowed, then you can add hot water and that will be ready to use. But I ended up using one type of gelatin for everything. It's called the type A, or with a low number, Bloom 175. And I use it both as grounding and for addition into the emulsions. It's easier that way to have just one type. It's a little bit a waste because it is more expensive. That's the reason to use food gelatin, which is cheaper for grounding, and hard gelatin for emulsions. But I decided that it's easier for me to use just one type. So I use this one, and I'll show you exactly how to prepare the grounding. Now, you will need this, and then you will need some sort of measuring tool to measure what you're doing, and you can use just about anything for this. Different spoons. I don't weigh. I prefer to use measure units. And you will need a spoon as well. Just pay attention that it's plastic and it's clean, or relatively clean, as you can see. Okay, and a glass. So I'm going to show you this gelatin and how much I take from it and what I do with it. So first of all, I'm going to use this spoon. It's about 5 milliliter, it says, and I will just level it up. It's not very precise. It doesn't really matter. One spoon like that. Okay, you can see the amount, approximate amount. So the next thing I'm going to do is to add cold water into it. So now you can see I have added some cold water and I've stirred it, and I will allow it to stand a little bit so that it can swallow, and you will see that it's not running anymore. About 10 minutes. So the next step, now you can see it's not running anymore, and the next step is to add hot water. And when I'm adding hot water, I want it to stand on a hot water bath. So here I've prepared the hot water bath that is going inside. It can melt by itself, but I do need to dilute it a bit. So I'm filling up the glass. And I try to stir without making bubbles, just very, very carefully, and give it time. Never boil gelatin. Gelatin should not go over 100 centigrades, because otherwise it's going to lose all its good properties that we need. So the moment it will dissolve, it just takes a little bit of time, and you see how careful I'm stirring without making bubbles, just as little bubbles as possible. And I'm checking if it's all melted before I do anything else. So this takes a little bit of time. Just be patient. I can lift it up and see if there is something in the bottom. That's why it's very convenient to use a transparent container, because then I can see what I'm doing. I can see through the glass. I can see if gelatin is completely melted. If it's not, I just let it stand a little. Now, in the meanwhile, while it's melting, I will show you. I have prepared a few glass plates, as you remember, and glazed ceramics, and some commercial tiles. I'm going to show you on everything. Everything is cleaned and dried. Now, when this is ready, in a second or two, it is almost ready. I can still see. Yes, now it's ready. It's completely transparent. When it's completely transparent, I have to add formalin. Formalin is poisonous, so don't breathe it in, and have good ventilation. I use a pipette, and as you see, I just take 1, 2, 3 drops just to be sure. It doesn't really matter how much you use of this. I exaggerate probably with 3 drops, but I have very good ventilation in my working space, so that is not a big problem. Formalin is not as bad as you would imagine it. It is has a reputation. Now I'm going to level this on a glass plate which has been completely cleaned from before. Now, if you are very good at this, you will get a very even coat without touching. I'm not very good at this, so sometimes I need to just move it around a bit. And that's okay. That's not a problem. Try not to get it under the plate. If it's too much, you just let it run off. You can put it back, but you can also just throw it away. After you're done, then you have to clean it under, but you can also clean it under later. So just make sure that everything is coated and there are no openings. As you can see, I'm moving it around with a spoon. It doesn't really make any problem. And I let it run off. And I put it down to level. So now a little bigger plate. For a bigger plate, obviously I'm going to need a little more of this. So I take 2 spoons. And again, move it around. I'm not afraid to touch it. It doesn't do so much. It will not leave any marks or anything. Just move it around. No bubbles. Bubbles we don't want. Your hands are properly washed with soap. There is no cream or hand cream or whatever, or fat, no food around. That's very important. And not smoking near these materials. You should not inhale any of this. Now on ceramic tile, I will probably need a little more. So just lift the whole thing and pour it over. And again, I can easily move it around. It will not leave any marks. My tile is preheated. It's a little warm. If it's cold, it will not coat properly. So just try to do it right, so that you get it even, and try to see what you're doing. Some people add a little bit of watercolor into the gelatine, so it's easier to see where it is running. You can also naturally add different colors into gelatin, which will remain. It can be colors that will just be intended for cold process, or it can be ceramic or glass stains or salts or acids or different other things which will react with the cyanotype later on. Now I'm messing up really on this one, and you see here are a lot of bubbles, but I'm doing it nearly on purpose so that you can see that all mistakes I'm doing, they're going to show to a certain extent. And it really depends on what you are after, what kind of quality of print and picture you want, if this makes a difference for you or it doesn't. So you'll see all this. I'll try to just pour more or less the amount I guess I'm going to need, and just let it fill up the plate. Again, if it's not filling up, I will help it by hand. It's really up to you how precise and exact your coating is. The coat needs to be even, thin, and no bubbles or marks. That's the purpose of it. So you can see that it is pretty good. This gelatin, with the addition of hodder, cannot be melted again. So I have to use it up and throw away the rest, because it cannot be melted anew after the formalin or chrome alum as an alternative, or glioxal as the alternative, is added inside the grounding, because these hardeners do that the gelatin cannot be melted anew. For the emulsions, we are not going to prepare this type of gelatin. We are going to use the same type but without hardeners. Please do not make a mistake and do not add the gelatin with hardener inside the emulsions. That will make real problems, because then the print will not be possible to develop. So I will explain later. This is the demonstration for how to make tests. When I make my real work, the work which I'm going to keep, the work on bigger sizes, and etc., I'm working in a different manner. I will just have gelatin dissolved according to measures, and I'll give you the formulas later. And I will let it dry, and after it's dry, I will use a hardener bath to dip this into. And I will prepare the gelatin as thin as I can, and I will make several coats. And I do not need to harden before the last coat is applied. But after the last coat of gelatin is applied, I can dip the plate into a harder. And as you can imagine, to have, you see the amount of gelatin is being used. It's sufficient for maybe the amount of tiles I've chosen to coat right now. And it's the same for glass, and it's the same for ceramic tiles. You can naturally use colored tiles as well if you prefer, and I'll talk later about the firings, additions, chemicals, etc. If the tiles are not, or the glass are not cleaned properly, you will not be able to get an even grounding coat. So this is very, very important that everything is very clean, and there are no dust, no fat, no marks, no anything. These are dust spots and bubbles, but in theory is one thing, how it is in practice is a different thing. So that's about it.